Saturday. Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is the PCC, the President Coach Cleveland.
Polynesian Culture Center?
Cleveland. See, that's why it's funny, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's funny. Coach, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, guys. I'm doing good. How are you?
We're feeling good.
Great.
We like the idea that we get to watch more BYU basketball, and we want to know your reaction to the matchup with UT Arlington in the first round of the NIT.
Well, you mentioned it, regular league champs, and they did beat St. Mary's, and they beat them at St. Mary's. They didn't beat them at home, so that makes that even more special. I think probably the one difficult thing for Arlington is you lose your second leading scorer, and the guy who started 32 games at the point guard position, he fractured his thumb on Friday, and it doesn't look like he'll be playing Jalen Jones. So that's a huge loss for Arlington. Anytime you go on the road and lose your point guard and don't have any time to kind of adjust, I'm sure that'll be a difficult thing. But they're a very solid team, and even with Jalen Jones, I felt like BYU had the advantage playing them at home. But statistically, they're very similar in terms of scoring, in terms of the ability to defend and three-point shooting. I think the other thing is that they're coming off a great year. He's done a nice job there, Scott Cross. He's been there 10 years. They've been to one tournament in the NCAA, one NIT. But I think maybe the most important win they had is they beat Texas. And I know Texas is not great, but anytime UT Arlington beats Texas,
Holy
it's
cow.
a huge game.
Yeah.
Pretty
It's
good.
a huge game. And so he's done a really solid job there. But I think the loss of the point guard is really going to be something they can't fix this quickly. But it'll be competitive, I'm sure. I like BYU in this game just because they're at home where they do play better. But UT Arlington will guard, and they'll be prepared. And if they have someone that can step in for Jones, that'll be great. If not, I think they're not going to be able to make enough baskets to do it.
If you told me, okay, what's the worst possible matchup for BYU in the next game? I'd say St. Mary's again. And then the next thing would be a team that beats St. Mary's. So it's not Gonzaga, but it's that other team, UT Arlington. Does that spell trouble for BYU potentially?
Well, you look statistically, and in that game, St. Mary's shot like 39% at home and 29% from the three-point line. So, it tells me they guard, and it tells me that they're an upper-class team. They have all juniors and seniors that play, and when you have a senior point guard that plays, a significant amount of minutes and can control the ball and take care of the ball, you can play against St. Mary's. So they have the experience factor that maybe BYU didn't have. So, no, they're well coached and they have good enough talent. I'm just saying that you take a big piece. I mean, you can afford to lose a lot of guys. Don't think at this juncture that you can lose your point guard who also happens to go for 15 and 5 a night. That's pretty hard to find that guy on the roster that's going to take his place. But it tells me they're prepared. They have a good coaching staff. And like you said, other than Gonzaga, they're the only ones to beat St. Mary's. So, and, teams play bad at times, and St. Mary's, who knows what their mindset was in that game. But Arlington's well coached, and they'll come in and compete. They probably haven't played many games at altitude, and they probably haven't played many games against teams that actually they have. One commonality is that they played Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, they lost to Coastal Carolina.
And they split with Coastal Carolina, and BYU beat them. So they got two familiar opponents, St. Mary's and Coastal Carolina, but they lost to Texas State by 20, a team that they had split with in the season. So they're beatable. They're beatable in their own backyard, and I suspect that it'll be hard for them to beat BYU. I expect it to be a good game.
President Coach Steve Cleveland with us on BYU Sports Nation. The Cougars are 11-1 all-time at home in the NIT, so generally very successful. If they get past UT Arlington, looking at a potential showdown with Houston or Akron, it's been about BYU getting to Madison Square Garden, right? I mean, that's because they've done it the last two times. Like, well, let's just get to New York City again. What kind of a road does BYU have this year with this young team to try and make that happen? Because it seems like a pretty tall task.
Well, the thing about those previous tasks were at home. Somebody got upset, and then all of a sudden they have home games. They're going to have to go on the road. Houston is a lot like them in that they're going to push the ball and score. They got a similar RPI at 55. They're 12-4 at home, so they've been beaten. That American Athletic Conference, SMU and Cincinnati are both really good. Houston finished third in that league, and so it's not like they're going to be overwhelmed by BYU when they come in. So that'll be a tough place to play. Even tougher to play if you're talking about getting to New York, is going to Cal, and Cal is so good defensively. They changed the game defensively with Ivan Rabb inside. That's just how they play. Now, Utah's played Cal and 3 times, and obviously lost in a close one. Then they blew them out, and then they got beat in the NCAA tournament. And I consider Utah to be a pretty good defensive team as well. So Cal will be a different challenge in that they'll have great size and they can guard. It's a tough road to go. I think they beat Arlington, and then Houston, you flip a coin. I don't know. I've not seen Houston play. I've looked at the comparative scores. They were 12-6 in that conference. They beat Vermont and Rhode Island. Those are good wins. Those are both 2 NCAA tournament teams. And to be honest with you, Rhode Island and Vermont are both teams that can pull off upsets in the first round of the NCAA tournament and get to the Sweet 16. And things have to happen. But Vermont especially has won 21 straight. And they're a team that is a seasoned veteran team. So Houston beating the likes of those teams, they're capable of doing it. So, hey, this is a great opportunity for BYU to be in this tournament. As you both mentioned, it's one of those things that BYU gets to work on some things that get that bad taste out of their mouth about how poorly they played and move the ball offensively, play with some purpose, get back to guarding. Though I thought the defense against St. Mary's was better, I thought the offense was as stagnant as I've ever seen. And I'll tell you one other little thing is whether it's now or the spring or the summer, somebody has to emerge as a leader in this team on the floor. It can't be just Coach Rose and the staff. And I don't know if that'll happen during this time, but if there's one thing that needs to happen with this program is there needs to be some leadership from the players rather than just the coaching staff.
It'll be interesting to see who emerges in that role, not just in the NIT, but in the games moving forward in the years to come. Coach, it's always great to talk to you. We appreciate you taking the time with us on a Monday. It's March Madness. Life is good.
Baby.
Yes, it is. This is the time of the year we all love. Lots of fun. So, I've never, for a long time, you could not do a bracket. When you're coaching, you couldn't do brackets. They disallowed those things. So, I'm back in the bracket business.
Yes.
Oh, let's go. Let's go,
So
Steve.
When I get back in California, we'll get together and we'll get a little something together, and hopefully that's not a problem with BYUtv.
Nope.
You
I love
can
it.
fill out
We'll
an
do it anyway.
NIT bracket with us.
All right, we'll do both.
Thanks, Coach.